versus the female gaze. It's anything that you think is, oh, I created this to be art, can be looked at as raunchy and pornographic. Just depending upon who looks at it.
Right.
So just take the photo however the fuck you want to take it.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't decide how everybody else perceives it, per se. You know, so it's like, photo's gonna come out the way anyone thinks, but also like, fuck whoever thinks that.
Welcome back to Open Late Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Esfandiary, and today we are bringing you that new series, Asking for a Friend. I thought, who better to bring on the show than the founder of Cakesbyalexys, but also AKA my former assistant. And
was I your first, like, kind of? There was one overlap.
There was one before you, Leola, but she wasn't like a full-time, like, salary. Yeah, so you were here with us and then left to launch your business. But while you were here, we became really good friends.
Yes.
There really weren't boundaries.
Right.
It was not the best. It wouldn't fly in like the non-monogamy, polyamory, boundary heavy. There was no conversation around.
Well, I have plenty of boundaries, but you wanted to make me family, which I'd never really experienced in like a workplace setting because I'm very like professional. Like I come in, I do my job, and I leave. I don't like to like linger, especially because I've never had a boss that I like really liked or cared for, except for Lee. But he was never really around when I like worked at Spray La Vie. I was never like, you know, he wasn't like my direct boss. But yeah, so it was just an interesting dynamic for me, but one that I like was like, I love this. I enjoy this. Like, sure, why not?
Also for me, I feel like welcoming you into our home and like being part of the family was something that I just also defaulted to because I was learning how to have help. Like I was learning how to like have an assistant, and I really didn't know how to do it very well, if you remember.
We were both learning, and I'm like kind of the perfect person to be a kind of guinea pig on, if you will, because I'm very, whatever you give me, I'm gonna give back to you.
Right.
So like if you want to be really professional, then that's that. If you want to be a little bit more like, you know, family, like I will lean into that.
Yeah.
Like I kind of lean into whatever's thrown at me. So it was nice to be able to like.
We want to be like twerking in front of the mantle midday dance break. We can do that. Wait, was that while you were here or after?
No, we definitely would take like dance breaks.
Yeah.
And at first because so it was 2017 when I came
I think so.
on. And then when I left in 2019, I was like a very different person. Because at 2017, it was like I was like getting sober. I was like not like drinking. And I still don't drink now just by choice. But it was like a very turning point in my life where like I wasn't so much aware of my mental health and how that affected your daily things. And you being so into meditation and into healing and into that, I was like not the same person afterwards because I was just so much lighter, so much not as like rough around the edges and just kind of like soft. And now I'm like really in my soft girl era, just kind of like
embracing.
Let's just embrace femininity and vulnerability and everything. But I could not have said that in 2017. I'm like, what is vulnerability like?
I love
That's
that.
not great.
I mean, I guess it helps that when, you know, you come into this house, whether it's like in a working environment, relationship, or friendship, or whatever, I'm automatically like, how can we help you grow?
Yes.
Like, here, take this course come on this retreat with me, which you came on the very first retreat that Lauren and I ever led in Joshua Tree. And you did all the food for it. Well, you did some of the food for it. Actually, Leah did.
I brought like one vegan like omelet dish, and then I did the desserts for it as well.
Yeah.
And then my best friend Cindy, she did all of the hair, and then I ended up just doing everybody's makeup because
for the photo shoots. That's
2016 influencer upbringing. Like that's when the makeup era was like coming into like everybody wanted to be a beauty influencer. So I was like, I know how to do someone's makeup.
This is so funny. You saying that, you know, working here maybe influence a little bit of you evolving and like, you know, stepping more into your femininity, embracing it, allowing all that softness. And I feel like you changed me as a person in a lot of really beneficial ways though, because I feel like the makeup. I did not even own makeup really before.
I remember getting like your whole collection, like highlight, bronzer, concealer, like you're like, as long as it's vegan, cruelty free, like get it for me.
Right. You like hooked it up. You were like, no, this mascara, I still use the Kush mascara sometimes, which I think you got.
I do not like that one. So it was a different one. It for me, it like gives me
you get
it runs. I don't know why. It's the only one that's run. But I remember I did use it and I gave it to you and you really liked it.
Well, now I use, my new assistant actually got me the Dior stuff and she's like, this is the best. So
interesting. I'll have to find what that is.
But I mean, truthfully, you helped me step into my hot girl era before I knew it was happening.
Before anybody knew what a hot girl era was.
Which is why I dressed up for you today.
Yes, with the tennis necklace and the corset. Usually, I don't know. Now I'm a bit more like hairs in a clip, like kind of gym cozy casual, but like cute. But like now with the makeup, like I love it. And before I feel like makeup was like, not like a mask, but it was kind of something to like hide a little bit of blemishes rather than like really using it to just enhance.
Right.
And so now I'm like, makeup to the gym, of course.
Really?
Why not? Oh yeah.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, and I follow Whitney Simmons, who is like an amazing like fitness influencer, and she was like, I just couldn't get myself to go to the gym. Like prior, like 2 months ago, I couldn't. I like had gone with a trainer and he was so intense and so rigid on my food and it just didn't work for me that I literally like say I had like gym PTSD. So now that I'm back, she was like, oh, we're going to dress, cute and we're going to like layer and we're going to have a cute gym bag and helps me go. And it's not every day that I wear makeup. It's just like that helped me to get into my confidence, like, and kind of like be a gym girl and like excited to go.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit because I think one of the things we wanted to discuss was hot girl era. Hot girl summer kicks into hot girl era. I mean, I think you introduced me to Megan Thee Stallion. Like, I didn't even know who she was.
My queen.
I know.
Yes.
I listened to her getting ready for this today. Because
okay, you're channeling Alexys. You're channeling it.
I'm a method actor, okay? So, what we're kind of talking about already is, I think, owning your confidence, right? Building that like internal self-esteem as a woman and using tools, whatever it is, to like help you feel it so that you can kind of go out into the world and be it. So if you want to put on makeup to go to the gym, or if it like helps give you motivation to put on a cute outfit, whatever it is, it's like at the end of the day, self-expression.
Right.
And I lacked a lot of that because I think like around the time that you started too, I was really in a place of like, oh, I'd like to mute myself because I was still in that good girl. Like,
you used to wear like the hats and the leggings and you had shorter hair and you were very like a bit more reserved from what like the first time I met you. That's why I was like, okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't really me. Like it wasn't not me, but it was also this version of me that was like, oh, don't be too big, don't overshadow anybody. And I think just like growing up in a society or culture that was like, oh, don't take up too much space, right? Especially as a woman, embracing your sexuality was very taboo. I mean, it still is.
It still is. It's not quite as taboo as like I guess before 2020. I think after 2020 a lot of things changed, obviously in our world, but also just like within women and like how you represent and show yourself to the world. I think through social media especially, and like podcasts like these like have really allowed people to like grow into who they actually are.
Yeah. Why do you think that is with like social media and podcasts? How are they so influential?
I think because like in, I don't know, like 2015, 2016, if you were like recording yourself or like, doing whatever, people would be like, oh, that's so cringy, or oh, you're trying to be an influence. Like all these things that people do still say, and people do, like people might find me cringy. People might find like influencers that are like doing, fitness routines and all that stuff cringy. But like there's this big thing going around on TikTok where it's like, this is the year of cringe and we're going to embrace it. Because being cringy, I feel like in my head, if you think like, oh, that's so cringy, is directly tied into something in you that you are embarrassed of that you're seeing in that other person. And 100%. So that's why people are saying like this is a year to embrace it. But with social media giving you an outlet to kind of like be yourself or express yourself or like use it in a way to help somebody else rather than just like, this is my avocado toast and what I ate for breakfast. Like we're not as interested in a society, I feel like, in things that are not with even just a little bit of substance. Like you have to have a little bit of substance in order to, there's just too much information. And like TikTok specifically, which I told a lot of people that weren't on TikTok like in 2020, like get on it.
You've been telling me like
do it. And I knew that it was going to be a platform that was going to grow into being like education, like being educational. And a lot of the content that does well and goes viral is educational content. Whether that be like, this is how I, organize my fridge, or this is my open relationship and this is what it looks like. We're not as interested in like just little tidbits of information that aren't useful anymore.
Right.
And so I feel like with that, it's allowed people to kind of share who they are, and whatever niche group of people like that will gravitate towards you.
Right.
And whoever doesn't, doesn't.
Whatever their expertise is becomes, with their personality.
Yes.
I do feel like what you're talking about too is us seeing society move from this like highly polished, highly produced or edited.
The Instagram era.
Right.
The only post what looks good on my feed.
Yeah, and like television, right? Television and movies. Everything is so curated, which we still love that, of course. Because it's entertainment. But what we've moved to is like seeing what we moved to is seeing people like in their homes, in their regular clothes.
Yes.
And obviously the pandemic probably had a lot to do with that, where it's like, okay, people can't leave their homes, so now your living room is your set.
Exactly.
Or your kitchen is your set. And people had to also get really creative with income, right? And also like the dawn of OnlyFans. We've seen so much, I think, power and resources and obviously abundance of money come back to women, or not even back, but maybe for the first time in generations,
being able to capitalize on that,
where like you really have the ability to own whatever it is, your brand, whatever you're putting out, whatever you're selling, without having a middleman. Generally, and
everyone's their own boss. Nobody wants to work for anybody. That's kind of like the main thing I see is everybody wants to be their own boss, and however that looks like for you and however you're trying to attain that is the way people are leaning into.
That just made me giggle because right before we hit play, we were talking about how you can never be an assistant. Like, you're just not made to.
No, I was, and it served me really well. But like now, like owning my own business and not really working for anybody, like the last couple of years, it would be challenging if I had to go back into the workforce. But touching briefly on what you said about like social media, I feel like a lot of the content that is more organic and more real, like, is coming about too. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but there's like the corporate baddie, like the girl that works 9 to 5 and she like loves her job and she's like doing it and she just like works a corporate job. But there's also like the corporate saddie, like someone who hates their job and is like working 9 to 5 and is like sharing that experience. Like I just, the honesty and the truth and like is just very empowering, I think. I
love that. No, I've never heard of this. Corporate saddie.
Corporate saddie. That's who I would be if I had to get a corporate job.
Totally.
I'm just doing this so I can go buy my fancy lip gloss, like, and live the life I want to live. But
Oh man. Well, one of the things that you brought up to me that I think is interesting, relating from this bad girl era into relationships, is like how it's affecting relationships with whatever dynamic, where you have women that are feeling really empowered, that are able to own their sexuality, and that just don't want to settle for anything less than what they get from themselves, what they get from their friends.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've also moved into this like space where women are just celebrating women constantly.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier. When we have judgments of others, it's just a reflection of like what's happening inside. And I think so many women are kind of waking up and doing the healing work. So there's not as much, I think, jealousy being projected, because it's like, oh, I'm enough on my own. And we're very different, and there's no competition.
It's the abundance mindset.
I have is myself. Yeah, so you're seeing like all these really powerful friendships, women celebrating women. And I think when we like eliminate that competition, or at least lessen it that's inherent, the like kind of drive to like get a man or keep a man or whatever it is way less, coupled with the fact that like I maybe don't need you anymore.
Right.
Whether it's a man or a woman, your partner, whatever in between.
Whoever it is,
It's like I could pay my own bills and take myself to dinner and buy myself jewelry. So I think women have really raised their standards.
Yes. I will say, though, we are very fortunate in the circles that we run in specifically. Like, I think that there is still so much more work that needs to be done, just like all around the world. Like, I mean, the US specifically, like just our mental health, crisis that we have, like tied to the healthcare system, which is an entirely other podcast episode.
Yes.
But like I want more for everybody. And I hope that in like 10 years, women are like, you put that woman down, like we don't do that anymore. Right. Like I hope we can grow into like everybody is kind of in line with that view. Yes.
We definitely are kind of always at the leading edge. Yeah. I feel like whether it's, Los Angeles, that we're talking about, or like, you're right, the friend groups that we run in. And it is such a good point to make. So we're talking about like the culture that we're in and what we see trending on the places we hang out. Like you're really big on TikTok, and I like have this love-hate relationship with social media, but
everybody does.
And then the feed reflects back to us what we're interested in. Right. So what I am seeing is like all that growth, and I spent a lot of the last couple of years in ceremony. So yeah, but at the same time, there is still a long way to go.
Exactly. So like if you're hearing this and you're like, I wish I had that group of friends or some people like that, it's like you can. You just need to be that person first, and you'll attract those people.
Yes, you will attract whatever it is you're putting out, as you said earlier. And you could be the lighthouse for all of the other women who are like ready for that level of sisterhood. And if you need help with that, reach out. We can point you into
DMs are always open. I always tell people, like, they come to me for like recipes and business help and stuff, and I'm like, if you need like a mental health issue, if you have like a lot of stress, you can also come to me for that too. Like, whatever.
You are a great ear, and
Thank
also an amazing, like, I just feel like you make everything funny and more fun. Like there's so much levity. Yeah, to you and your brand, even Cakesbyalexys. So
just feeding the masses sugar.
You're the creator of the brownie slab, though, which I know is like going away. But I have to comment on it because we've had the brownie slab featured on the show a few times, and we've had birthdays, and Pasha and Lauren's cake last year was your cake.
Yes.
We did.
And I just want to say, I did not create the brownie slab, just to not take credit over somebody else that did. There's a company in London, Brownie God, who actually, she started it first. Like she was like the one to send it, but she doesn't ship to the US. Oh. So I was like, there's a need in the market for this product. Why don't I try to fill it? She wasn't very happy about it, but
whoa.
That's tea.
First of all, I love it because this is so authentic. You're like, here's the tea. But also, you are demonstrating what we literally just talked about. You're like, there's no competition here. I'm not going to take credit for something that I didn't start. And here's this other woman who did it.
She's like 22 or something, and she's like making a ton of money. Like she has a team of like 9 or 10 people that this is all she does on Uber and Postmates in the UK. Youngin, making bank. Wow. Selling like hundreds of slabs a day.
What?
Yeah, I could never. Kudos. Yeah. But yeah, just the young entrepreneur woman, like she doesn't need a man. She can pay her own bills.
Exactly. This is what we're talking about.
Yes.
Hot girl era.
Hot girl era.
Yeah, it feels really good too. I will say it's been mildly uncomfortable for me to like own it and to whatever, dress how I want, be more sexy, be more revealing. Wait till you see my new website. Which people are going to be like, you take naked photos with Lauren all around the world, like da-da-da-da. But it's funny. I always have to do it with like an element of like, this is art rather than like, this is sex. And I want to get comfortable with that, period.
Well, that like leads me into just like the male versus the female gaze. It's anything that you think is, I created this to be art, can be looked at, that's raunchy and pornographic. Just depending upon who looks at it.
Right.
So just take the photo however the fuck you want to take it.
Yeah.
Because you can't decide how everybody else perceives it per se. So it's like, photo's going to come out the way anyone thinks, but also like, fuck whoever thinks that, there's something wrong with it too.
I'm hearing the coaching.
It's funny because I don't even think of it as that. I just think of it as more of like, I think turning 30, which I turned in November, solidified everything like leading up to that, which is like, I really just stopped giving a shit about what people think about me. Like, obviously I'm not perfect in that. Like, there's always going to be a little bit of like that like, oh, but what if da-da? But for the most part, like, I don't know why or when. I think like fake it till you make it. I would just like tell myself in the mirror that I was beautiful, even though for a really long time I just didn't think it. And I just was like, you're gonna think whatever you're gonna think regardless.
Right.
And I don't know when I had like a little, I think maybe it was like after an ayahuasca ceremony, I was just like, well, whatever, you know? Like,
I was just gonna say, was there a moment?
I think it was like, yeah, I think coming out of the second one that we did here, which was an all women's one, which was like incredibly powerful, that I also did with my best friend, was just like, why do I care?
Yeah.
You know, it was very eye-opening for me. And I like try to portray that and try to like, you know, not be like a guide to my friends, but just by doing like, and people seeing it, you know, eventually they're like, oh yeah, like I don't give a shit with that girl, or at the gym, like she gave me a dirty look, or the guy on the street, you know. So just being like that example of like, I don't give a shit. Yeah. And that's okay.
It is okay.
You know,
because it's always okay. It just is.
Yeah.
Too. That's the thing. We decide everything. As you're talking about this, it's making me really reflect on why I have so much sort of, it's not even self-judgment, but that awareness of like, how is this going to show up? And I think it's because for a long time I felt like I had to be a role model. And this has never dawned on me before this moment. I think whether it's like having younger sisters or sort of being like a ringleader from the time I was like in high school of like other girls, and then growing
the mommy
into
role kind of almost?
I always have. Yeah, and it's so funny because like even with like my friends now, or like Lauren, for example, she was telling me something the other day, and I like sensed that maybe she like, I don't know, not that she was nervous to tell me, but it was almost like telling mom, you know, and I have that energy with people. And
me running here being late, being like, she's gonna be so mad at me.
Not at all.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
I was also running late, so it was perfect. I'm like, I have more free time. But it's funny, the perception that I have is like, I'm always on point or whatever.
Yeah, you're always on.
What people have of me.
Yeah.
And it's something that I feed into, and then it feeds back to me, making me feel like I'm being watched, or like people are looking at me for whatever. And it's like, wow, that ego must be really exhausted.
It must be tiring.
Yeah.
To feel like you have to be on for everybody.
It is.
You know?
It's one of the reasons that I'm like taking a hard break.
Yeah.
Like
from the coaching and
from all of it. Yeah. I mean, except for this. There's worse things.
Well, you love this.
We are not going anywhere. There will be a maternity leave, but I will pre-record. Yeah. But so thank you, because I feel like you just helped me kind of land on something. And that is, well, I'm like, that is an identity of myself that I want to break, as I'm literally about to become a mom. I don't want to be seen as the group mom anymore.
But that's different, though. Like, I have a very group mom presence as well. But I have almost like the group mom that like the mom that had you at like 16, and now you're kind of like sisters rather than like a mom. Like, so I definitely, like, I'll have friends that are like, oh, I'm talking to my ex again. I don't want to tell Alexys.
That is so mean of my friend.
And like, the only reason you don't want to tell me is because I'm going to tell you that he ain't shit. And you know, but I try not to. I had a very long friendship with somebody that like is not there anymore, and I realized that a big part of that was me wanting something for that other person that they just, I wanted it more for themselves than they wanted it for them. And I was just like, that's not a fun friend to be to somebody. I don't feel like that is somebody who like, you know, necessarily is being the best friend, but also like stepping away out of that role and like just trying to be like an ear versus like giving your opinion. This is also now why like when people give me their opinion, I didn't ask for it. I'm like, I have spent the last few years trying to like not give people my opinions unless called upon, because I just find that it's kind of like a boundary that not everybody is going to set with you, that you have to enforce yourself if you're like me, who has a very strong personality. You know, so now a lot of my friends like, well, I still am the mother because I don't drink when we go out. So when people get like really turned, I'm like, let's go home, let's get some pizza, like it's time to wrap it up. You know, but also they're kind of like, oh, they can come to me and talk and know I'm not going to judge them, or like have fear of, you know, expressing something, and, you know, having an open line of communication that works both ways. Yeah. You know, also I had a very like not meltdown, but like I would say in December, I was like, I felt like I was giving so much to people and not getting enough in return. And it wasn't that I wasn't getting enough in return. It was that I was like giving too much of myself to people and realizing that that was burning me out. And I was like getting resentful because I was expecting something from friends that like, they never asked you to do this or they never asked you to do that. Like, you're just there. And as I pulled away a little bit from like trying to do more for others and for myself, it's led me into being more happy and being able to just be like comfortable and satisfied with my friends because they're amazing versus like being like, I did this for you, and you know, but that's like a subconscious thing. It's not something that I was thinking. That's
what happens once your cup starts to get a little less full and you're kind of like drawing at the bottom. You will generally get resentful of the relationships or the work, whatever it is that takes your time, because you're like pouring from an empty cup.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think everything you're sharing is so self-aware. There's so much good and value that comes out of that dynamic or that role that you play of like being the mom in the group or whatever, because there's light and dark to everything. So it's like, okay, there are these like really amazing things about it, and this relationship is serving me in some way. It's filling that need. So I always love to look at like past relationships, romantic ones or platonic ones, like you've had with this lifelong friend that's really like no longer in your life. It's like, okay, that was really filling a need that you had from like whatever unhealed part of you. And once you learned it and it ran its course, it was a lot easier to walk away.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about you now.
But, you know, not me. That's just me asking for a friend, of course.
Yeah, I know you brought some questions.
I did bring some questions.
So let's go.
Cause my eyes were opened to the fact that not every single person in this world is monogamous when I met you.
Yeah. What was your first? Okay.
So I was like, I didn't know people like I thought this was like a movie thing. Like people just do this in the movies. Like, you know, they like talk about it.
What movies you watching?
Not movies, but like
non-monogamy.
Something more of like taboo entertainment rather than like reality, like real.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how did we tell? Like, did we tell you? Did you find out?
I think that you guys, you had like just met Lauren. Like you met Lauren through that like leadership thing, and then isn't that how you met her?
Yeah. Well, Pasha knew her from years and years.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay,
but
Pasha did know her.
Like, yes. They hadn't like seen each other like spoken in 6-7 years.
Well, she was coming around more during that time, and I remember the first time, it was Halloween of like 2018. That was like the first time I ever saw like you, Lauren, and Pasha like together. But before that, you didn't. I honestly don't know. I think it was just like it happened, or it was so casual, or like you mentioned it like, oh yeah, like we're open or something. Like you did kind of tell me directly, but not in like a weird way. It was just kind of a way where you told me, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then it didn't really hit me till I went home, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, wait, okay, so they're married, but they still see other people. Okay, cool. Whatever. And then like I kind of just moved on. Like,
which you were with us for a minute before we met Lauren, so I'm wondering if like it just wasn't around you. Like
it wasn't around.
Yeah, like if we went to a party or like brought somebody home, like you never knew about it.
No. I only really knew, I think, like kind of because of Lauren, and because like you guys were in a relationship. So for me, it was like, oh, they're like all in a relationship. Okay, like
makes sense. I mean, because we were very private up until that point, anyway.
Up until that point. So I'm not sure if you had like mentioned it before, but I don't think you did. I think it just kind of happened, and I was like, okay. Like, all right, like. So
then you see us with Lauren.
Yeah. So then I see you with. I see Pasha with Lauren. I think they're like kissing or something, and I was like, that was the first time I'd actually seen like him being physical with somebody else besides you, and I was kind of like, okay, like, all right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was really it.
No real reaction.
No real reaction because it's LA, and I, you know, like
my hippie bosses.
And my hippie bosses, and they're vegan, and they're fucking other people, like whatever. Cool, I love that for you. But that was the first time, and I don't know. I'm very like, I'm not judgy, and I just don't like. I knew that was something people did. Yeah. It wasn't like I didn't know people had these kinds of relationships. I just never knew anybody in one.
All right. Yeah. So non-monogamy in the wild.
Non-monogamy in the wild, because like one of the topics I had, mentioned was so much of this like romanticizing monogamy, and not even like romanticizing it in the sense, I guess I meant more of like seeing that as the norm, and like really there's like an interesting TikTok I saw, and I think that your friends the Dana and
Dana and the Wolf. Yeah, I had them on the show.
I love their reels. They're so funny.
They're so funny.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's so funny. But they had reposted something like a girl being like, oh well, you know, you can't be friends, like just the instillment of monogamy and being jealous of other people from like the jump.
Right.
From the second we're on the playground and Timmy is playing with, you know, Lisa and Susan.
Right.
You can only play with one, you know. Or like if, you know, in a romantic setting. That being the ideal of like this kind of that's the standard. That's the golden standard for people. Heteronormative, like only two genders, like that very like, I think, which is now a conservative way of thinking, right. I guess I would say. But I think there's also so much like jealousy tied around that people don't even realize, like, you know, monogamy for people is, you know, like for me is like, it's great, you know, I do with it what I will, but sometimes seeing it from like a different angle, I guess, like when you're not used to that, is like, oh my God, that's weird.
Yeah.
And you're
totally.
But like, okay, it's weird for you. It's not weird for them.
Right. But that's what we do as people.
Yes.
Like, and that's the ego. Like, okay, what is the norm for me should be the norm for the world.
Right.
Hit my mic. And I think like as we grow and evolve as a society, we're like waking up from that, and we might be at the cutting edge of it. But it is romanticized in a way where it's the ideal, and people see it as this like very successful thing that when you do it right, there will be like no issues, and it's the norm.
Yes.
And it will be easy.
Correct.
And all of these things, and it's just so not true. Like one of the main questions that I get, or what people bring up to me, and I was just like traveling, you know, Southeast Asia, and I went to this retreat center in Thailand for, I don't know, I was there for a week. And so I was meeting all these new people, and it just kept coming up to the point where like day 4, I'm like, I'm not bringing up the podcast because it brings up, you know, everyone's like, what do you do? Yeah. It brings up too much of a conversation because everyone's like, what? It is the like, and it's the whole conversation. Because I feel like I don't meet many new people nowadays. Yeah. Like I kind of have like my circle, my community, whatever, and everyone knows. So other than this show, I'm not like constantly explaining.
Do you ever feel,
hypothetically, if I was asking for a friend,
do you ever feel like, not to be hard, like a circus monkey, like do you ever feel like by saying something and people like oh my God, like how do you, like I could never, like, and it's like, bitch, like it's not me, it's not my whole life. Like, you know,
they don't realize that they're making you, or not making you, but kind of like relating to you then as such like an other, like as if I was like, oh, I'm actually a crystal inside.
Yeah.
Like that people will think of you as so different. So yeah, just kind of like not of this world, because this world to everybody is monogamy.
That's great for you, but I could never do that.
Right. I can never let my partner, like the moment someone says that, that sentence, I'm like, well, that is a reflection of the fact that you believe that you own your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because with monogamy, and I feel like with being poly, like you guys are, there's still difficulties in every relationship.
For sure.
Like, doesn't matter whether you're sleeping with one person or you have the ability to sleep with others. Like, there's still always going to be some kind of issues.
Yeah.
So the root of whatever those problems are, and at least for like a lot of couples, and I feel like the disconnect in a lot of couples can be like not feeling like they can be themselves. And for me, that was a really big thing, was like not finding anybody that just like unapologetically let me be myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I was single for so long.
This is like one of the main points that I always try to share with people who are monogamous, to think about the principles of non-monogamy and what it takes to have a healthy, consensual, you know, non-monogamous relationship, and apply that to non-monogamy. Start actually telling your partner about your innermost thoughts when it comes to other people, right? And that might be uncomfortable at first, but kind of denying the fact that you have an attraction to somebody or a crush or got turned on by an experience that didn't involve your partner,
right?
Whether it was with other people or even like a show or porn, whatever it is, constantly keeping that to yourself and feeling like you can't share it will erode your own like confidence, self-esteem,
right,
and your relationship. Because what happens is you're denying this part of yourself that's your own humanity.
It's just being human.
And you create kind of this like distance because there's this whole side of you that they don't know. And maybe you're, you know, afraid they're going to be jealous or they're going to be hurt or it's just going to be hard. But imagine what that does after like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I believe it's one of the main factors why people just grow apart and don't know each other. And then there's a lot of like shame that comes with that. Shame loves secrecy. So then you have to hide even more.
Exactly.
And I think that if monogamous people would just be open to sharing that stuff alone, it would do wonders for their relationship. Because then you get comfortable in the space of like, okay, like I'm working on my jealousy now. If I know you're attracted to somebody that you work with, rather than keep it a secret and then breed that secrecy, which then has shame, right? And then more secrecy because it's like a little spiral.
It's like a little cycle, yeah.
Now I know, and now we can get comfortable with it. We can work with it. Maybe we start bringing that into like the bedroom and dirty talking about it. Like, you know, I think a lot of...
you went there.
Yes, it's true. That's actually like one of the main things, and I don't think I've ever shared this on here, but like the inception of our non-monogamy. I always say like, well, and you know, we had this accidental threesome, which was true. But before that happened, we kind of committed to each other from day one. Like he moved in from the jump and I was like, I never want to hide any part of myself because I came out of a relationship with a ton of shame, secrecy, and infidelity on my partner's part. And he was like, same. Like, let's just, like, if you're attracted to somebody, tell me. There was no like open. I don't think any of us really knew what any of us, there's two of us, non-monogamy was.
This is you and Pasha, right?
Yes. But we were like, okay, cool. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And he would tell me and I would tell him. And then I was like, well, it kind of turns me on. And then we would talk about like all of these things in the bedroom that were very non-monogamous. Like,
which led to your healthy relationship, I feel like.
Right.
You know?
And 3 months later, threesome.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Threesome. Just like that.
So I think that this, I mean, to like bring it back to the mononormativity, if you're going to be monogamous, amazing. Do it consciously. Choose it. Like, work on yourself and owning who you are and like giving that whole part to your partner. Like all the pieces of you.
Well, communication is a huge issue for a lot of people in friendships, in relationships, and at work, like whatever. And like, I think we have this, at least I used to do this thing where I'm like, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to hurt your feelings, or I don't want to say this because it's like I might have this outcome, which is like taking away something from the person, which is you basically saying you're not strong enough to handle this if I tell you.
It's also over-functioning because now you're making yourself responsible for their reaction to your truth.
Yes.
Which is something I think a lot of us do because of like how we were raised or how we needed to like emotionally regulate around our parents who had no idea what they were doing probably. And so I learned this in therapy. That's why I'm using this like terminology, but she was like, you're constantly over functioning. Because I would try to micromanage the information that was shared when I was younger so that I could manage everyone's feelings and reactions.
Which is impossible.
Impossible. And it's kind of what we were even talking about earlier. But it's true. If you really love somebody and you want to like hold them to their greatest, let them decide how they want to handle the information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you're also taking away a growth opportunity.
Exactly. You're just taking away an experience from like bettering yourself and your partner, you know, whatever that is.
Yeah.
By like not being open and communicating.
All right, lovers. Well, that was an incredible episode. We shared so much, and you got to kind of go back on a little journey through time and hear about the OG Jess and Pasha opening up through the eyes of Alexys. we have so much more to share that we're going to give you a part 2 next week. So stay tuned for more of this baddie. And I wanted to remind you that I'm traveling. So if you want to hear me speak or book me for an event, doesn't matter the size. I love to do intimate salons in someone's living room, or we can rent a venue and have a workshop all about non-monogamy and relating. If you want to meet other polyamorous people in your hood, this is how we start growing the community, and I would love to have you be part of it. So don't hesitate to reach out, and as always, I will see you next week.